All right, diving right in. We're tackling a topic that so many English learners want to get better at listening skills.
Definitely a popular one.
And you know we're going deep, especially since you want to understand native speakers better. You even shared that YouTube video from the Speak English with Class channel.
Oh, yeah, that one. It's called English Leap Podcast, Ways to Improve English Listening Skills.
So let's really break it down, see what gems we can pull out so you can start using those tips like right away. I think some of the stuff they talk about might even surprise you.
Oh, like what?
Well, have you ever thought about how listening is really the core, the foundation of language learning?
Yeah, I can see that.
The video actually calls it the base of the pyramid.
Interesting. I mean, we often jump to speaking or grammar, but you're right, listening comes first.
So if someone's aiming for fluent English, why is listening so crucial?
Think about it. Like how we learn our first language. We're babies, surrounded by sounds. Our brains, they just soak it all up. The pronunciation, the rhythm, how sentences are formed, all before we even know what grammar is.
Right, so it's like your brain's getting all this raw data from just listening.
Exactly. And then it can decode it, and then eventually you can speak it too.
So you're not just learning words when you listen closely, you're getting the whole feel of English.
Yes. It's like the music of the language, you know?
Love that. And the video, it really pushes this idea of active listening, not just hearing words go by, right?
Totally. It's the difference between like a song playing in the background and really listening to the lyrics to each instrument, even the emotion in the singer's voice.
Nice analogy. Okay, but for English, what does actively listening even look like? What do you do?
Well, it takes effort, you know? You're concentrating on the sounds, the intonation, how words are connected in sentences.
So it's deeper than just the words themselves.
Way deeper. It's trying to figure out what the speaker means, their intention, not just the literal words. When I was learning Spanish, I would record myself reading, then listen back like multiple times.
Ooh, smart.
Each time I'd focus on something different. First, pronunciation, then the way my voice went up and down, then the whole meaning.
So you're training your ear to catch all those layers.
Yeah, and the more you do it, the easier it does to pick up those little things, especially when native speakers are talking.
Which, speaking of, the video is honest about how tough that can be. Like, understanding natives when they use slang, idioms, or just talk at their normal speed,
Uh-huh.
which is fast for many learners.
Oh, yeah, big challenges.
But they don't just leave us hanging.
The good news is our brains are amazing at finding patterns. The more real English you hear, even if it seems too fast or confusing at first, your brain adapts.
It starts figuring out the code.
Exactly. It notices how sounds link together, those subtle hints that give away the meaning. It's like learning to read a map. At first, it's just lines and symbols, then suddenly you can navigate.
So it's more about training your brain than instantly getting every single word.
Exactly. And they give some really practical ways to do that.
Okay, hit us with those tips. They recommend starting with stuff made for English learners, like podcasts or audiobooks that have slower narration.
Great place to start. Builds confidence. You get used to the sounds without feeling overwhelmed, like going for a nice walk before you try climbing Mount Everest, right?
Love it. And they suggest using subtitles in a smart way. Start with them on, then slowly turn them off as you understand more and more.
Yeah, subtitles are like training wheels. You can ditch them once you've got your balance. They really help, especially at the beginning, because you can see the words as you hear them.
And the video mentions watching videos multiple times.
Oh, totally. Even in my native language, I do that. First time, I might focus on the story or the actors, but then I'll watch again and notice little things I missed before. The way they said something, the background music, even just their choice of words.
Makes you realize how much we miss if we're not really paying attention.
So true. And this goes with another big tip, focusing on keywords. Even if you don't understand every word in a sentence, if you can grab those most important ones, you'll probably get the overall meaning. Like reading a headline gives you the gist without all the details.
Ooh, good strategy.
Uh-huh.
So they give some specific resources.
Yeah, they talk about podcasts made for learners, audiobooks that are clear and easy to follow, even TV shows or movies where the dialogue isn't too complex.
So start easy, but the key is to keep leveling up, right?
Totally. Just like you would with weights at the gym, you got to make it a little harder as you get stronger. Find that sweet spot where you're challenged but not totally lost.
So beyond just listening, they have some interactive stuff too. Have you ever tried shadowing?
Oh, shadowing's awesome. Not just for understanding, but it makes your pronunciation and fluency better too.
How does that even work?
You're listening to a native speaker and you try to repeat what they're saying almost at the same time, like you're their shadow.
Whoa, that sounds hard.
It is. But the video's big point is it's not about being perfect. It's more about training your ear and your mouth to work together, get comfy with the flow of English.
I like that. Takes the pressure off a bit.
Definitely. And the more you practice, the more you'll notice how much better you're getting at pronunciation, connecting sounds smoothly, even just feeling confident when you speak.
That's encouraging. Then they have dictation, too. You listen to a little bit, pause it, and try to write down what you heard.
Dictation is awesome for paying attention to detail. Got to listen to every single sound right.
Like a workout for your ears.
Exactly.
So many different ways to practice. It's cool how it all ties together: listening, pronunciation, even writing. Helps you understand English from all angles.
It does. And they mentioned something simple but really useful, just summarizing what you've heard.
Like, after a podcast or video, you re-explain the main points,
Yep. Great for checking if you really understood and remembering it better.
instead of it just going in one ear and out the other.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's the big one for lots of learners' accents. So many different English accents out there.
Yeah, the video doesn't pretend it's easy.
But they give some really helpful advice. The more you listen to different accents, British, American, Australian, all of them, your brain gets used to them.
It's like teaching your ear to recognize they're all part of the same family, even if they sound different.
Exactly. They suggest things like watching interviews with people from different places, listening to news from other countries. You gotta immerse yourself,
And it takes time, right?
for sure. It's normal to feel frustrated at first, but the more you listen, the easier it gets to understand all those different ways people speak English.
Mhm.
It's like learning to enjoy different kinds of music. At first, you might only like one genre, but the more you listen, the more your taste grows.
You start to appreciate all the variety.
Yeah.
It's not just about understanding the words, it's like appreciating the whole richness of the language.
You're right. Absolutely. And this leads to a really important point they make: listening and speaking go hand in hand. The more you listen, the better you'll speak.
So true. Makes sense. It's like learning to dance. You watch others, you pick up the steps, and then you start moving yourself.
Exactly. Listening gives you all that input, the raw material you need to speak well. You absorb the sounds, the rhythms, the words. It all influences how you speak.
And the video, they recommend actually practicing conversations as much as you can. Find a language partner, a tutor, someone to talk with.
Absolutely. It's the best way to get better at both listening and speaking.
Even just watching a movie and then retelling the story to a friend in English can help.
Definitely. It makes you use the words, think in English, and speak more naturally. You can even try mimicking native speakers.
Ooh, I do that. Like, I'll pause a TV show and try to say the line exactly the way the actor did. It's fun.
It's a great way to borrow their skills and make them your own.
And the video, throughout it all, they're big on being patient and consistent. These skills, they don't happen overnight.
It's a journey, not a race, right?
Exactly. And they talk about celebrating the small wins. Maybe today you understood a new word or followed a conversation a bit longer than usual.
Those little victories, they keep you going.
Yeah, it's so easy to focus on what we can't do yet.
Yeah.
Got to celebrate those small steps.
Absolutely. Okay, now the video gets real life listening situations.
Ooh, the ultimate test.
Right. They can be scary, but they're also the most rewarding. You're in a conversation, gotta focus, understand, and respond right there in the moment.
That's where all those skills you've been practicing come together: active listening, understanding different accents, getting the meaning, even if you miss a word or two.
Exactly. And they give some really practical advice for dealing with this. The
Mm.
biggest thing, it's okay to ask for clarification if you don't understand something.
Oh, I still do that, even in my native language. Sometimes we all need things repeated or explained differently.
Totally. Don't be afraid to say, could you repeat that? Or what does that mean?
And they even give specific phrases for if someone's speaking too fast or you're having trouble with their accent.
Like, could you slow down a bit? Or,
Well,
I'm still learning to understand different accents. Could you speak a bit more clearly?
those are good ones to remember.
And they're all about embracing those real-life opportunities to practice. Listen to podcasts, the radio, chat with friends in English. The more you push yourself outside your comfort zone, the better you'll get.
The whole world becomes your classroom.
It does. That's what makes language learning so cool. It's not just stuck in textbooks, it's part of your everyday life.
And that's the beauty of getting good at listening. It's not just about being fluent. It's about being able to connect with people from different cultures, enjoy movies and music, navigate the world confidently.
It really does enrich your whole life. You know, it's interesting how when we talk about listening skills, we might not immediately think about vocabulary.
True. But the video has this whole section, Charlotte's Vocabulary Spotlight.
Mm.
They really get into some key words and phrases.
Makes sense, though, right? You need the words to understand what you're listening to.
Totally. And they're not just random words, they're all about the ideas in the episode, so it helps you understand those concepts even better. It's like they're giving you the tools to not only listen better, but to talk about language learning itself.
Oh, that's smart. It can be really empowering when you have the words to describe your own experience, the good and the bad.
Absolutely. So, to give our listener a taste, let's touch on a few of the words they focus on.
They start with conversation, which seems basic, but they define it well. It's that spoken exchange between two or more people.
Right. And even those everyday conversations, they can have a lot of tricky language hidden in them.
Then there's context, which they explain as like the situation or the information around something that helps you understand it better, which is super important in English because words can have so many different meanings.
Context is like the puzzle pieces around a word. It helps you see the full picture, get what they really meant.
Yeah, great analogy. Then they talk about confidence, that feeling of being sure about what you can do.
And we all know, whether you feel confident or not, it makes a huge difference when you're learning a language.
It's what lets you take risks, try new things, speak up, even if you're not totally sure. That inner voice saying, I got this, even when you're nervous.
It's like that moment when you finally get a joke in English. Small win, but it makes you feel like you can do this.
Exactly. And speaking of things that can be tough, they highlight the word tricky.
So it's not just us, right?
Yeah.
Even native speakers find some stuff tricky.
They do. Language is always changing. We're all learning.
True. Next up, details. Those little pieces of information that can make or break your understanding.
It's the difference between seeing the forest and seeing each individual tree. Sometimes those tiny details, like how someone's voice goes up or down, or a specific word they chose, that's what unlocks the real meaning.
Like a secret code.
Then they get into key points, those nuggets you really want to remember. It's that active listening again, being able to filter through all the info and pick out what matters most.
Like taking a whole recipe and boiling it down to the most important ingredients.
Perfect. And they talk about skill, that ability to do something well, especially with practice. Which reminds us, it's not about being born good at languages.
It's about putting in the time and the effort, like building any other skill.
Exactly. And they use the phrase building on something, meaning you keep developing and improving it, like adding bricks to a house, making it bigger and better.
I love how they use those real-world examples. It makes it easier to grasp.
Right. And then, of course, there's the word missing something, which happens to all of us.
Especially when you're learning English, it's so easy to miss words or not fully get what someone meant.
Even native speakers do it. No one catches everything all the time.
So true. They also talk about when you say something is super helpful.
It's that informal way of saying something is really, really good.
And then there's developing something, making it better over time, which is the whole point of language learning, right?
You're constantly growing and evolving. It's a journey.
Totally agree.
See, you used another one of their words. Totally. To show you agree completely.
I did. And then they talk about realize, meaning to suddenly become aware of something.
It's those aha moments when it all clicks into place.
Like that feeling when you're doing a puzzle and finally find the piece that fits.
Exactly. Then they talk about flow, that smooth, natural movement, like the flow of a conversation, or even how smoothly your thoughts are moving as you get better at thinking in English.
It's that feeling when you're not even thinking about the language anymore, you're just communicating.
Totally. They also have get the gist, meaning you understand the main idea even if you don't get every detail.
Super important, especially if someone's talking fast or it's a complicated topic.
Then there's the idiom go over your head, which means something is just too difficult to understand.
Like when you're in a meeting and everyone's using jargon you've never heard before.
We've all been there. Kickoff, meaning to start something, is another one they mention.
Like kicking off a meeting or a project, or even your journey to better listening skills.
And they talk about beauty of something, meaning the best part of it. Like, the beauty of learning a new language is that it connects you to so much more in the world.
It's those new experiences, the challenges, the feeling of growing as a person.
Beautifully said. Then there's feeling like a big win, meaning you accomplished something awesome, like finally understanding a native speaker talking fast, or being able to keep up in a conversation without feeling lost.
Makes all the hard work worth it.
Then there's step out of your comfort zone, trying things that are new and maybe a little scary.
Which is so important in language learning. You gotta push yourself.
Take risks, see what you're really capable of.
And the phrase hand in hand reminds us, listening and speaking, they're a team. They work together.
Like two sides of the same coin.
They go together. Celebrate small wins. They say that a lot too. Don't forget to be proud of yourself for every little bit of progress.
Every step counts. Pickup means to learn something, usually through experience, like picking up new words just by listening to people talk.
Your brain's a sponge, soaking it all up.
Right. And they talk about frustration, too, which is totally normal when you're learning something new.
It can be frustrating, but don't give up.
And lastly, they remind us building vocabulary is a step-by-step process.
It's a marathon, not a sprint, right?
Exactly. That's the cool thing about languages. It's an ongoing journey with new stuff to discover all the time.
So after all that advice and all those helpful words, the video ends with a really strong message.
They're like, okay, we gave you the tools, now go use them.
They want people to take action, to really put this stuff into practice. It's like they handed us a map and said, go explore the world.
Exactly. They're all about staying motivated, keeping that energy and excitement going. Keep practicing, be patient, and don't give up on your goals.
And they remind us there's so much out there to help us learn, like their YouTube channel, their podcast, so much good stuff.
They really are passionate about helping people with their English.
This video is packed with useful info. It's practical. It's inspiring.
Absolutely. I think it's especially good for our listener today who's really focusing on understanding native speakers. It lays out a clear path to get there.
Yeah, they take all the complicated parts of listening and make them feel doable.
And they make it fun.
You know, what I love most is that it's not just about skills. It's about the whole experience of learning a language. It's about the ups and downs, the little wins, the feeling of challenging yourself and growing.
It's about the power of language to change your life.
I love that. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are the key takeaways? What do you hope our listener will remember?
Well, the big one is listening has to be active. It's not enough to just hear the words. You got to engage with them, focus, really try to understand.
Be present in the moment, right? Soak it all in.
And then practice, practice, practice. There's no shortcut. The more you listen, the better you'll get at everything accents, understanding those little details, following conversations smoothly.
It's like any workout. The more you do it, the stronger you get.
Exactly. And be patient. Language learning takes time.
Don't get down on yourself if you don't get it all right away.
Remember, even native speakers zone out sometimes and miss stuff.
Oh yeah, all the time.
So just be kind to yourself, celebrate the progress you're making, and keep going.
And don't forget all those great resources. Podcasts, audiobooks, TV shows, movies. There's so much out there that can help.
Find what you enjoy and you'll learn without even realizing it.
And remember, the whole world can be your classroom. Every time you talk to someone, listen to something in English, you're learning.
So get out there, don't be afraid to make mistakes, and let the power of listening change how you experience English.
Love it. I think now it's time to let our listener take all this in.
Yeah, let it sink in and figure out what they want to try next.
Because the most important step is the one you take today.
Exactly. So we'll leave you with one last question to think about.
What will you do today to get better at listening to English? Doesn't have to be some big, huge thing either. Just start small.
Yeah, for sure. Like maybe you listen to an English podcast during your commute. Or you watch a 5-minute video on YouTube with subtitles.
Or even just chat with a coworker in English, even for a few minutes. It's about making it a habit, fitting it into your day.
Totally. It's like you wouldn't expect to get ripped after one workout, right? It's about doing it regularly. That's how you get stronger.
Good point. And hey, we've covered a lot in this deep dive. We talked about why listening matters so much, those practical tips, even all those useful words and phrases.
It's all there for you. Now it's time to take what we talked about and actually do something with it, you know? See what works for you and have fun.
Learning a language shouldn't feel like a chore. So keep listening, keep practicing, and keep reaching for those English goals. Until next time, happy listening.